Welcome back, everybody, to A to Z CFB, where we will go over the top 25 as well as just some other stuff in college football today. If you are new here, welcome. We do a weekly top 25 as we see it. And if you are returning, welcome to have you as well. Thanks for coming in. Make sure you follow us on TikTok and on Twitter at A to Z CFB, same as the YouTube channel, same logo and everything. That being said, this week we have a pretty interesting top 25. Had to make some really tough decisions, as well as a pretty overhauled Heisman ladder, especially as it looked last week with a new face on there that we will discuss at the end. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Last week we started off by going 25 to 1, and that had actually a lot of traction to it. I thought that it turned out pretty well. A lot of people seem to like it. We got some comments about it. So this week we're going to do the same thing. And without further ado, we're going to start with our honorable mentions. In no particular order, our honorable mentions are South Florida, South Carolina, Southern Cal, Arkansas, Nebraska, Clemson, USC, Louisville, BYU, Toledo, Baylor, Southern Miss, Ohio, FIU, New Mexico, and Houston. These are combined. These are like a combination of several different groups of teams. You have the one group of teams that just have not done enough to get into the top 25, but are they're right there. You then have the next group, which is teams that definitely have the talent pool, but just for some reason aren't performing well enough to be in the top 25. And then you have the third, which is like some teams that I just think are playing really good football, but maybe the tides haven't quite shifted in their favor yet. That being said, into the actual top 25, here we go. So number 25 uh, is going to be Notre Dame. I wrestled with a while. I wrestled with myself for a while trying to decide whether or not I thought this team should or should not be in the top 25. And ultimately, I think that I kept them in the top 25 specifically because of the nature of both of their losses. They're 0-2 on the season, and they have lost to two now top 10 teams in the via the AP poll. And it hasn't been like they've been blown out either. These were games that could have gone either way for either of them. We could very well be looking at a 2-0 Notre Dame team. Now, speculation aside, I do think Notre Dame is on pretty thin ice, and this is kind of a tough spot for them to be in because if they don't blow out a lot of their other opponents, they're just simply not going to be viewed as good enough to be in the college football playoff, considering the two actually good programs that they got to face are just not they lost to them, right? They had two opportunities to state their case, and now they're 0-2. Number 24 is Tulane, a team that I've been very high on. And then once they got, Jake Retzlaff, I really thought they were gonna, take a step forward. And in the Darian Mensah revenge game against Duke, they've now taken down two power schools, in Northwestern and Duke, and are sitting pretty right now, right? They're 3-0. They're really doesn't seem like there's anybody in the American Conference that can challenge them. And as at this point, they're definitely my pick to be the group representation in the college football playoff. Number 23, Auburn. Another school that's 3-0, and also finding themselves first on this for the first time on this list. I'm really still not sold on the way that they are running their team. I don't necessarily like this, coach by committee, potential quarterback by committee kind of thing. And while I do think that they are, they're a very talented team and there's a lot that they have to offer, and that Baylor win was impressive, I'm curious to see how they're going to handle themselves considering their next five games they face number 11 as the AP ranks them. Number 11 Oklahoma, number 10 Texas A&M, number 5 Georgia, and number 23 Missouri, and an unranked but not pushover team in Arkansas. They will also later in the year, like every year, host Alabama, and they still have to travel to number 20 Vanderbilt. So outside of, I think, three games in the rest of their season, they're against ranked SEC opponents, which that's just simply never anything easy. Now, even if they take two of the six of these, or they take three of the six of these, or even four of the six of these, you're still looking at, a couple losses on the season. And look, if they take four of the six of their ranked opponents, they're going to be a playoff team. But I just don't know how much longer this is going to last for, especially since it's not like they blew out South Alabama. They beat them 31-15. Number 22, somebody on that list for Auburn is the Missouri Tigers. They had a 52 to nothing victory over Louisiana this week and are two spots up from last week. Missouri has sort of dodged a bullet against South Carolina. We're still yet to see if Lenora Sellers is playing. I know Shane Beamer has a rule about if you are able to play or if you were allowed to play if you practiced by by the Tuesday of. So those should be out about now. So I should have probably checked that before I came on here. But if they're, without Lenora Sellers, I would have to imagine that Missouri is going to win this game. I think they have the best team they've had over the last few years, and Bo Pribula has been playing some very, very, very good quarterback for Missouri, and this defense has also been pretty outstanding. Number 21, another 3-0 team, but that's going to be the Indiana Hoosiers. With a 73 to nothing Indiana State victory, obviously, we expected that to happen. You expected them to beat, their in-state FCS rivals. But this is going to be a very, very important week for them because they face Illinois, the team that kind of almost took their spot as like that like team in the Big Ten that was going to emerge this year after not really expecting to emerge. Like Indiana seemed like the obvious favorite right after the season, right? They had just made the playoff. They had seemingly made some upgrades at a lot of key positions. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, well, actually, we like Illinois more. So this is a real prove it moment for Kurt Cignetti and company to see if if they are actually going to join that upper echelon of Big Ten and be, a perennial a dynastic program, if you will, or if they're just going to, be a relatively middle of the road team. But hey, they're 3-0 right now, and it's going to be a really, really big game for them next week. Number 20, that is the Tennessee Volunteers. They are 2-1 on the season with a pretty heartbreaking loss to Georgia. Chris Brazell had himself an absolute day. He was their wide receiver who caught 3 touchdowns, two of which in the first half, where, Joey Aguilar pretty much just threw the ball up and said, screw it, Chris Brazell is down there somewhere. That being said, Georgia grew a lot stronger as the game went on, and Kirby made the correct adjustments that Josh Heupel just couldn't keep up with. I think Tennessee is still a really talented team, and we'll just see how that rest of that season turns out. But I think they're still going to be a very good team, and the fact they hung in there with Georgia so long, and we're that close to winning, says a lot about this program. Number 19 is Michigan. They are up 4 spots as well with a 63 to 3 victory over Central Michigan. Without their head coach, Sharon Moore this week, they had one of their best offensive days. Now, look, I know they were against Central Michigan, but Bryce Underwood looked a lot more under control, a lot more poised, and made a lot more impressive decisions. And they're going to have a heck of a week this week with Sharon Moore's second week off and a non-pushover Nebraska team. It really wouldn't surprise me if Nebraska was able to shock Michigan. And I'm not saying they will or won't, but I do think that is, Michigan it needs to play their game, um, especially against a Nebraska team that has been receiving both AP and A to Z votes. Number 18, the Vanderbilt Commodores. They're new to this list, and 18 is a pretty high spot to be new. And the thing is with Vandy is although they beat a South Carolina team that was very highly ranked, they obviously beat them without their starting quarterback. That being said, you don't get ranked because of one player. You rank because of your whole team. And the fact that they just went in and dominated that team, Diego Pavia has been playing very quietly some really good football. He did the thing that I was hoping he would do, which is just shut his mouth and play ball. And he ran it all off season. He talked about how they're going to be the pride of Tennessee now, and they should be. And heck, they're ranked higher than them right now, and they're 3-0 and just beating South Carolina. This Vanderbilt team is sneaky, and I'm excited to see what they do. Number 17, that's Ole Miss. Ole Miss, they were able to outlast Arkansas's high-flying offense and quarterback Talon Green, who, hint, hint, still might be on my Heisman list. This was a very impressive victory for the Rebels. And although, Austin Simmons has still met his struggles, this is a very talented team, and nothing is guaranteed in the SEC, especially not with this Ole Miss team. But I just think their talent profile is just good enough that I'm willing to keep them right around this 17 spot. Number 16, the Texas Tech Red Raiders, another 3-0 team with an absolutely dominant victory over Oregon State, who's damn near a power program. Um, I still like to consider them a power program. They look really good. They look like a team that, the team that Josh Pate was talking about this offseason, that like it just feels different in that organization, in that building. They have Utah this week, and if Baron Morton can continue playing the way that he's been playing, um, some really, really good football, then it's going to be a really tough day for both teams, especially Utah. Number 15, the Alabama Crimson Tide. They are 2-1. They're up a spot this week after doing some dirty work to Wisconsin. They beat them in their home and away. They beat them in Camp Randall. They beat them in they beat them now in Alabama. What they did was damn near a war crime to them this last week. They besides, a kick return, they couldn't get anything. Wisconsin couldn't get anything done on offense. And after a little bit of struggles early, Alabama really just kicked it into gear, and it was completely out of the hands of the Badgers after that. Ty Simpson is looking like he's coming into his own. This team, obviously, that struggled loss against Florida State sucks for them, but they're back in the top 15, and it would not surprise me if they found themselves in the top 10 very soon. Number 14, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Unlike the AP poll, this is not my first time ranking the Yellow Jackets on this list. They had a 24-21 victory over Clemson, and they just look really, really good. This is a team with zero quit in them. Haynes King is frankly been one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and it's really, really hard to find more teams just simply playing better football. This is a school that I think could absolutely run the ACC, and I would not be surprised if they ended up in that championship game. Look, Clemson's not a bad team, despite their 1-2 start. They are still a very talented team. So to be able to take that team down, they deserve this top 15, jumping up 7 spots, ranked to number 14. And I almost debate on putting them above this next team, but that next team is number 13, the Texas Longhorns. Arch's struggles continue. And although they won this last week and they're 2-1, they beat UTEP 27-10. They dropped them 6 spots. I just don't think that they're playing good football, and it's going to catch up, especially in SEC play. I don't necessarily think that Arch is a bad quarterback. I want to make that very clear. We are 3 weeks into a football season where he is still, a young guy, because all these quarterbacks are young guys who's in a, crazy pressure situation. I think he will figure it out in some capacity. I think we're going to get a better version of Arch than we've gotten the first couple seasons, but or the first couple of weeks. But I also do think that Texas is maybe just not as good as we thought they would be. I think while they have the talent profile, I would absolutely be willing to put a huge part of this blame on Steve Sarkisian. And I've been saying this, I've said this so many times. Steve Sarkisian is a great football mind. He is one of the best football minds, maybe the best football mind that we have had in the 21st century, as far as creativity and play calls and the way that he, can call plays and run an offense. But his head coaching ability and ability to put a team that's disciplined and that knows what to do and that can handle themselves on a football field has time and time again proven to just not be that impressive. Therefore, I think that this is the time where Sark needs to earn his pay, or they need to, look into something else. Number 12, not necessarily something I thought I'd be doing at this point in the season, but that's number 12, Oklahoma. Oklahoma expectedly beat the brakes off of Temple in Temple. Kind of funny when you get a really big program like that going into a smaller program. But look, they looked really good even with that dominant performance, and they're going to have to look really good because the gauntlet starts this week. The two teams with the craziest gauntlet start with each other. Auburn comes up to Norman, Oklahoma, and they get to play each other and kind of duke it out to see which one of these guys is going to at least attempt to make it through the fire and flames. Number 11, that's going to be the Texas A&M Aggies. I didn't really try to fault Notre Dame too much for that loss, but Hey, Texas A&M. Is it luck? Is it skill? Is it voodoo magic? Who cares? Texas A&M is 3-0. They took down Notre Dame. Marcel Reed has been playing crazy good football. And it's just one of those things where we've expected this for years and it's finally happening, and now people seem kind of shocked about it. I've been saying Mike Elko's the guy to get it done. He is a really, really good head coach, and I think that if anybody is going to get it done for this team, it's going to be Elko. Now into the top 10. I did this last time too, so I'm gonna do it again. I just want to thank you guys if you've made it this far into the video. The first 15, they were fun, and now we're gonna go through the top 10 here. Um, if you like this kind of content, if you like college football, feel free to leave a comment, leave a like, share this video. Go follow me on TikTok and Twitter and everywhere else you social media, and we like to have fun here. We'll have a good time, talking about ball, talking about college football, and I'd love to hear your opinions as well. Thanks again. Now let's get back into this top 10. So number 10, that's Iowa State. They're 4-0. They actually dropped a spot this week, but that was more of some other teams rising. And they beat Arkansas State. Now, I didn't think it was that dominant of a victory against Arkansas State, but it was a very Iowa State win, if that makes sense. I think that they are going to win all of their games in very similar fashion. All the ones that they do win are going to be low scoring, defensive slugfest, and the offenses are going to be, and Iowa State's offense is going to do just enough for them to win. This is not a bad way of winning. It's just a very stable way of winning. And sometimes um, if you shake the foundation of that, it can all come crumbling down real quickly. So hopefully Iowa State can keep on keeping on with that. But I do think that right now I have them as my second best team in the Big 12. Speaking of the Big 12, though, the best team in the Big 12, by my opinions, right now is Utah with a 31-6 victory over Wyoming. They kind of started a little slow with a couple silly offensive mistakes, but ultimately found themselves winning in a relatively dominant fashion. Heisman hopeful Devon Dampier is still is both their leading passer and leading rusher on the season, and is leading them in these categories two of the first three games of the season. He has ultimately been the difference for this team. This is not too dissimilar of a team from last year. They have a bolstered offensive line. They have some other pieces on defense, but ultimately this is not that different from last year. And just the addition of Devon Dampier makes a lot of difference. I was saying earlier that with South Carolina, a player doesn't make a team. But in this case, it seems like Devon Dampier has been that magic key that, allows for plays to be extended, allows for plays to get made, and for this team to, absolutely continue to rout their opponents. They're going to get a big one against Texas Tech this week. And while I would say officially I predict Utah to win, I wouldn't be surprised if it went either way. But if there is a difference, it will probably be Dampier either direction. Number 8, Illinois. And I kind of want to make a side note in this real quick. Somebody the other day, I remember who it was, on TikTok or something, said that they were confused why Illinois was so high, and that like why some of these teams, were ranked where they were, based off of kind of preconceived notions of the season, and not necessarily how they've played this season. And what I would say to that is, what? Like we spend the whole offseason speculating on how these teams are. Yes, there will be some teams that get slightly more favoritism than others based off of what we think of them, but that goes both ways. If they play poorly on the field and they consistently play poorly on the field, at least in this context, Illinois would be brought down, but they've been dominating their teams. The guy used Illinois as an example. That's why I'm using them as an example of a team that has done nothing. Therefore, why are they in, the top 10? And again, what I would say to that is because there's a level of talent profile and a level of the way that we've seen them play so far this year that has proven that they at the very least have a ceiling in the top 10, and not many other teams with reachable ceilings are higher than them, if that makes sense. Also, teams have to eventually get ranked, right? There will have to be a 1 through 25, no matter how you rank it. You can't just have the top two teams based on what they've done and then 15 through 30. You have to rank teams where they are, and sometimes those will be closer margins and sometimes they'll be further margins. But just blindly saying that they aren't necessarily in the top because they haven't done anything yet this season and that our preconceived notions are dumb is in itself a very dumb argument and a very like misguided notion, I think, of how this ranking system works. Now, everyone will have their own rankings. Somebody might not even think Illinois is a top 25 team. Good for them. I'm not here to argue with you for that. I'm here to argue my case and why I put teams here. And I think that Illinois has both proven that they are a disciplined enough team and a talented enough team to warrant a top 10 spot. Now, they will have to back that up this week against Indiana. And I think that Indiana is also a really good team. And while the margin between 8 and 20 one might be at its closest about now, or at least this point in the season, I still do think that Illinois is the better team. And while Indiana could absolutely win this game and Illinois could, stumble and fall, I still would stand by this week's notion and my opinions on it for why I ranked them eighth in the country. Number seven, Florida State. Talking about some notions. So Florida State did not have a game this week, but they jumped up 8 spots, and I would say that's more of a corrective move. I think I probably should have moved them up a little more last week, and maybe there were some other teams that I moved down that I probably should have moved more down last week. So this is a little bit of a corrective move, but I do think that Florida State is playing really good football, and they do have a really, really big game this week, where they will get to challenge Miami for the, potential Kings of Florida title, um, which we will talk about, I guess, shortly, if since, you haven't seen Miami yet. Number six, and a lot of people, always accuse me of rage bait when I talk about this team, no matter what I say about this team. That's going to be number six is Ohio State. Again, 3-0. Their offense doesn't look good. All right, I'm gonna be straight up. Their offense doesn't look good. Jeremiah Smith looks phenomenal. He always looks phenomenal. Julian Sand looks fine. They say, oh, he's completing 80% of his passes. Yeah, that happens when all you do is throw up to Jeremiah Smith. I'm not saying Julian Sand's a bad quarterback. I'm not saying this is a bad team. I'm saying they don't have a good offense this year. And while their offense has been serviceable thus far, I don't think that the win against Texas looks nearly as impressive. I don't think that via that they haven't beaten anybody overly impressive. And this 37-9 victory over Ohio was way closer than it needed to be for a good majority of this game. This is not a team that I think is national championship ready yet. They absolutely could get there. They won one last year. They know what it takes to get there. But as of now, as of going into week 4 of college football, they are not ready for a national championship. And I think that they just have a lot of things to fix before they can get there. Again, I think the Texas victory, even though it's not as impressive anymore, adding insult to injury, I think that was, again, way more on Texas, who I think has a much more impressive player profile, a talent profile, than it is, an impressive Ohio State victory. Not rage bait, merely my opinion. Number 5, into the top 5. That's going to be Georgia. Number 5 is Georgia. They had a great comeback victory over Tennessee. While there were some cracks on the armor, I think this was even, a more impressive feat by Kirby Smart and Gunnar Stockton to be able to show out when you needed them the most, be clutch, their wide receivers not dropping passes in the terrible moments, and going through one of the best defenses in the SEC. To get that comeback victory. I think this was a really gutsy, great win for Georgia. And this is one of those wins that they're going to look back on and pull from when they find tough times later this season. Number 4, and my team from last week, that was number 1, but this week they're number 4, Oregon. The Ducks beat Northwestern 34-14, but again, just didn't look that good. They looked fine on defense. And after routing Oklahoma State by like 100 friggin' points, I really thought they were going to be way more dominant, but they were not. And maybe Northwestern's just a slightly better team than we thought, but this is a team that lost to Tulane by almost as bad. So I need my number 1 teams to be blowing out Northwesterns. And with Oregon not only not blowing them out, but looking really not great on offense for a while in that game. I have dropped them down in favor of some other teams that had much more impressive performances, like my number 3 team, Miami. Miami hosted a USF team that was riding high. They had just captured the MacGuffin. They were just beat Florida, calling themselves the Kings of Florida, and then boom, Miami just comes in and literally like a hurricane curb stomps them 49-12. It was not even close. Byron Brown was in my Heisman watch list the week before, and he just simply was not was not there this week. Uh Miami is looking like a really, really dangerous team. Carson Beck is playing out of his mind. And this defense under Mario Cristobal is finally gelling. If they can just not, poop themselves in the last 3 quarters of the season, this is absolutely a playoff team and a team that could find themselves with a first round bye. Number two, the Louisiana State University Tigers. With a 20-10 victory over Florida, they took down a very talented Florida team. Despite the woes of the Gators and DJ Lagway throwing for 5 interceptions this last week, this is still a very talented team, and their defense is the thing that is highlighted this year. Their offense, almost similar to Ohio State, is just not performing maybe at the level that they should, but I have more faith that it will get there purely because of quarterback play and returning talent all around. I think that LSU's offense will figure itself out in a much greater way. And their defense, I think, is going to be arguably, if not the best defense in the country. Um, Putting one of the more talented quarterbacks in an absolute spin cycle for the entirety of the game, and then uh, you know, beating them is is pretty impressive, even though it was only a 20-10 victory. They looked really, really good, and I think that LSU is going to still is the team to beat in the SEC. Now, my number one team back at number one after their week hiatus is going to be Penn State. Now, I know that Drew Aller hasn't been playing exactly how maybe we would expect them to, but their offense is still producing. The thing is with this offense, almost similarly, again, keep talking about Ohio State because they won a national championship last year, but in similarly to Ohio State, Will Howard didn't have to do that much. He had to throw it up to a wide receiver, a really good wide receiver. Penn State has a good receiving core now, and they had to hand it off to the best running back tandem in college football. Well, guess where that is right now? Travion Henderson, uh, Katron Allen, and Nick Singleton in at Penn State are the best running back tandem in the country. And with a pretty solid offensive line, I think that this is going to be, again, these are still the team to beat. Now, this week, Oregon, Penn, or not this week, sorry, the next game that they have is going to be Oregon, Penn State. Like they have an off week after their routing of Villanova, and then they play host to Oregon in Happy Valley. So I think this is going to be the biggest test so far for them. An Oregon team that has proven they can take down Giants, and a Penn State team that has not proven that, but has probably the most talented team that they've had this year. Am I saying, honestly, I don't know how this game is going to go, but I do think that Penn State is the best team in the country right now, despite maybe the subpar quarterback play. All right. That was a lot of talking. Here we are. So now that we have uh, gone over the top 25, we are now going to go over my current Heisman ladder. Last week, we had a few different names on this list, but we're going to go from 5 to 1 in the order of who I think is who is where number one is my favorite right now to win the Heisman, or the person that I think deserves it the most, and five being the one that who's fifth in that order. We're going to go from 5 to 1. Starting off with Miami's Carson Beck. There was a couple names I could have put here. I could have put Marcel Reed. I could have put Jeremiah Smith. I could have put Jackson Arnold, Bo Pribula, um, Diego Pavia, frankly, Baron Morton, any of these guys in the top 25, any of these quarterbacks, just Sawyer Robertson, from Baylor, who was in my honorable mentions. Any of these guys, I could have put here, but I'm going with Carson Beck. They beat Notre Dame. They beat a ranked USF team. They slaughtered a ranked USF team, and I think they are the team to beat in the ACC. And I think that this is the guy who is going to lead that charge. Maybe not someone I was super high on at the beginning of the year, but has absolutely been proving me wrong so far. Number four, who has dropped down a spot, but that's Talon Green, and not because of his play, just because his team lost. But I still do think that he is arguably just the flat out most talented quarterback in the SEC. I think that he is, um, as far as running, throwing, doing anything you could possibly ask him to do on the field, Taylon Green's your guy. Um, Unfortunately, the team he is on is just unable to, back him up when he is needed the most. Number three, also staying in the SEC, though, that's John Mateer, somebody who has been doing it all for his team, and I think will continue to do it all for his team, especially this week against Auburn. I think if for both Arkansas and Oklahoma, when they lose, it's generally not going to be their quarterback's faults. Number two is Thomas Castellanos. He was number two last week. Florida State obviously didn't play this week, but he will get an opportunity to prove himself against Carson Beck and the Miami Hurricanes this upcoming week for the aforementioned Kings of Florida. And finally, remaining at my number one spot, it's going to be Devon Dampier. He had another really, really good week in Utah, and he's going to have a really, really tough matchup against Baron Morton and the Texas Tech Red Raiders this week. So if he can figure it out and he can continue to play at the level that he's been playing and make plays and do cool things on the football field and be really, really fun to watch. I think that he will absolutely lead them to a victory and that they will play and they will absolutely win that game. All right. A lot of talking. That was a lot of fun. I had a really fun time going over that. Some minor news, not minor, actually pretty big news in college football. UCLA fired their head coach, which means Nico can enter the transfer portal in a 30-day window. Also, if he doesn't play in the fourth game of the season, he could also just choose to redshirt this season. So in theory, could transfer wherever he wanted and just redshirt for the season. We'll be really curious to see what happens there. Speaking of transfer windows, they have um, gotten rid of the spring transfer portal. So now it will only be the early transfer portal plus exceptions for graduate students and coaches leaving. And finally, also Virginia Tech let go of Fry, their head coach. So there will be an opening there as well. So we'll keep you updated on who gets hired where, what happens to who, and then how everything's going. That being said, thank you for watching. If you made it this far, great. I really appreciate you being here. Remember, go follow us on TikTok, Twitter, all that good stuff. And leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Was it rage bait for me to put Ohio State at 5? Is Florida State too high? What do you think, about this apparently arbitrary ranking of teams based off preconceived notions? Is that okay, or should I only be ranking teams with undefeated records at this point? Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys next time.